Maya Johnson pressed her face against the window of the transport shuttle as it descended toward Haven's Edge. The mining colony looked small from up here, just a cluster of white buildings scattered across the red desert like dice thrown on a table. She was 12 years old and had never lived anywhere but the crowded cities of Earth. This place looked empty and lonely. "You'll like it here," her father Ben said, noticing her worried expression. "It's quiet, safe. Good place to raise kids." Maya wasn't sure about that. She missed the noise and bustle of home already. Her younger brother Sam pressed against the other window, making airplane noises as he watched the ground rush up to meet them. Haven's Edge was a mining colony on the outer rim of human space. People came here to dig rare crystals from the ground and ship them back to the inner worlds. Ben Johnson was the new colony administrator, which meant he was in charge of making sure everything ran smoothly. Maya's mother had died 2 years ago, and Ben thought a fresh start would be good for all of them. The shuttle landed with a soft bump on the concrete pad. Maya grabbed her bag and followed her father down the ramp. The air outside was dry and hot, with a strange metallic taste that made her nose wrinkle. The sky was a pale orange color, nothing like the blue skies of Earth. Lisa Carter, the colony security chief, met them at the landing pad. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that seemed to notice everything. "Welcome to Haven's Edge, Administrator Johnson," she said, shaking Ben's hand. "I hope you and your family will be happy here." Their new home was a 2-story building near the center of the colony. It had thick walls to keep out the heat and small windows to keep out the dust storms. Maya's room was on the 2nd floor, with a view of the abandoned quarry at the edge of town. The quarry had been closed for 5 years after the crystal veins ran out, and now it was just a big hole in the ground filled with shadows. The first few days were busy. Ben had meetings with the mine supervisors and colony council. Sam started classes at the small school with the other colony children. Maya was supposed to start school too, but she felt restless and out of place. She missed her friends back on Earth, missed the familiar sounds and smells of the city. One morning, while Ben was at work and Sam was at school, Maya decided to explore. She had been told not to wander too far from the colony buildings, but the abandoned quarry called to her. It was the only interesting thing she could see from her window. Maya walked past the last row of buildings and climbed over a low fence with a sign that said, "Danger, keep out." The quarry was bigger than it looked from her room. The walls were carved in terraces that spiraled down into darkness. Old mining equipment sat rusting in the desert sun. The silence was complete except for the whisper of wind through metal and stone. She was climbing down one of the terraces when she heard it. A sound like whale song, but deeper and sadder. It seemed to come from the bottom of the quarry. Maya froze, listening. The sound came again, longer this time, echoing off the stone walls. Maya knew she should run back to the colony. Every instinct told her to get away from whatever was making that sound. But something else kept her feet planted on the stone ledge. The sound wasn't threatening. It was lonely, like a lost animal calling for its family. She climbed down another level, moving as quietly as she could. The sound came again, closer now. Maya peered over the edge of a rocky outcrop and saw something that made her heart stop. In a shallow cave carved into the quarry wall lay the biggest creature she had ever seen. It was at least 8 feet long, with a body like a giant cat but covered in dark armor that looked like it was made of metal and bone. 6 legs ended in claws as long as kitchen knives. Its head was wedge-shaped with no visible eyes, but strange patterns of light pulsed along its skull and down its spine. Maya had seen pictures of these creatures in school. Everyone in human space knew about them. They were called Void Stalkers, and they were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They had destroyed entire colonies, killed thousands of people. They were monsters from the dark spaces between stars. This one was hurt. Maya could see dark fluid seeping from wounds along its side. One of its back legs was twisted at a wrong angle. The light patterns on its armor pulsed weak and slow like a dying flashlight. Maya should have run. Should have screamed. Should have called for help. Instead, she found herself climbing down into the cave. The creature's head turned toward her as she approached. Where its eyes should be, Maya saw only smooth armor, but somehow she knew it was looking at her. The light patterns on its body flickered faster, and it made that whale song sound again. Quieter now. "Hey there," Maya whispered, the way she used to talk to stray cats in the city. "You're hurt, aren't you?" The creature shifted slightly, and Maya saw more wounds she hadn't noticed before. Something had attacked this animal, something with weapons that burned and cut. The creature was dying, Maya realized. Without help, it would be dead by tomorrow. Maya looked around the cave and found a small pool of water seeping from the rocks. She cupped some in her hands and slowly approached the creature. It watched her without moving, the lights on its armor pulsing in a rhythm that almost seemed like breathing. When Maya held the water near its head, the creature extended something that might have been a tongue and drank carefully from her cupped palms. The water disappeared quickly, and the creature made a softer sound that could have been gratitude. Maya spent the next hour bringing water to the creature one handful at a time. She found some emergency rations in her backpack and offered those too, though she wasn't sure if the creature could eat human food. It sniffed the protein bars carefully before taking them with surprising gentleness. By the time Maya had to leave to avoid being missed at home, the creature seemed a little stronger. The light patterns on its body had brightened and it was able to lift its head higher. When Maya stood to go, the creature made that whale song sound again, softer and with a different tone. "I'll come back tomorrow," Maya promised. She had no idea if the creature could understand her, but something in its posture suggested it did. That night at dinner, Maya could barely eat. Her mind kept returning to the injured creature in the quarry. She had helped it, but it needed more than water and protein bars to heal properly. It needed medical attention, antibiotics maybe, something for the pain. "You're quiet tonight, honey," Ben said. "Everything okay?" Maya wanted to tell him. Part of her knew she should tell him, but she also knew what would happen if she did. Security teams would go to the quarry with weapons. They would kill the creature without even trying to help it. That's what humans did to void stalkers. It's what they had always done. "Just tired," Maya said. "Still getting used to this place." Ben smiled and ruffled her hair. "Give it time. I think you'll find Haven's Edge has its own kind of magic." Later that night, Maya lay in bed looking out her window at the quarry. Somewhere down there in the darkness, a creature that everyone said was a monster was healing from wounds it didn't deserve. Maya had looked into its eyeless face and seen something that the history books and news reports never mentioned. She had seen intelligence. She had seen gratitude. She had seen something that looked almost like hope. Maya fell asleep making plans. Tomorrow she would bring better supplies. She would find a way to help the creature heal. And maybe if she was very careful and very lucky, she would learn the truth about the monsters that everyone feared. In the quarry below, lights pulsed softly in the darkness as the creature called Echo rested for the first time in days, dreaming of small hands bringing water and a gentle voice promising to return. Maya woke before dawn, her stomach tight with excitement and worry. She had dreamed about the creature all night, about its strange lights and the sound it made that was almost like singing. She packed her school bag with medical supplies stolen from the first aid kit in the kitchen, along with extra food and a thermos of water. At breakfast, Ben was distracted by colony reports on his tablet. Sam chattered about his new friend Kevin and the games they played at recess. Maya ate quickly and mumbled something about wanting to explore before school started. "Don't go too far," Ben said without looking up, "and stay away from the old mining areas. Some of those structures aren't safe." "Okay, Dad," Maya said, feeling guilty about the lie she was about to live. The morning air was cool and still as Maya made her way to the quarry. She climbed over the fence and hurried down the terraced walls to the cave where she had left the creature. Her heart pounded as she approached the opening. What if it was gone? What if it had died during the night? What if it attacked her now that it was stronger? But the creature was there and it was alive. More than alive, it seemed to have been waiting for her. As soon as Maya appeared at the cave entrance, the light patterns on its armor began to pulse faster, and it made that whale song sound she was beginning to recognize as a greeting. "Good morning," Maya said softly. "I brought you some things." She had raided the medical supplies in her father's office, taking antiseptic wipes, bandages, and pain medication. The creature watched with what seemed like curiosity as Maya approached its wounds. When she held up an antiseptic wipe, it extended its head toward her in a gesture that looked almost like trust. Cleaning the creature's wounds was harder than Maya had expected. Its armor was warm to the touch and felt like a cross between metal and living skin. The creature held perfectly still while she worked, only flinching slightly when she touched the deeper cuts. The antiseptic hissed and bubbled against its flesh, but the creature never pulled away. While Maya worked, she talked to keep herself calm. She told the creature about Earth, about the cities with their towers that reached the clouds, about the ocean and how it changed color with the weather. The creature listened, its light patterns shifting in slow waves that seemed to follow the rhythm of her voice. When Maya finished with the medical treatment, she offered the creature more food. This time she had brought fresh fruit and vegetables from the colony's hydroponics lab. The creature examined each item carefully before eating, and Maya noticed it seemed to prefer the sweeter fruits. "You have good taste," Maya said, watching the creature delicately eat an apple, with what appeared to be multiple rows of small, sharp teeth. "Sam would like you. He loves apples too." The creature paused in its eating and tilted its head toward Maya. The light patterns on its body shifted to a warmer golden color. Maya wondered if the colors meant something, if they were some kind of language she couldn't understand. Over the following days, Maya established a routine. She would visit the creature early in the morning before school, bringing food and checking on its wounds. The creature began to heal remarkably quickly. Its twisted legs straightened, and the deep cuts closed into thin lines that barely showed against its dark armor. Maya started calling the creature Echo because of the way its whale song sounds bounced off the quarry walls. She wasn't sure if it was male or female, but something about its behavior reminded her of the male cats that used to hang around her old apartment building. Proud but gentle once they learned to trust, Echo seemed to learn Maya's routines. He would be waiting at the cave entrance when she arrived, and he began bringing her gifts. Small things at first. Interesting rocks, pieces of old mining equipment, flowers that grew in hidden cracks in the quarry walls. Then one morning, Maya arrived to find Echo waiting with something extraordinary. It was a crystal unlike anything she had ever seen. About the size of her fist, it pulsed with inner light that matched the patterns on Echo's armor. The crystal was warm to the touch and seemed to respond to her emotions, growing brighter when she was happy, dimming when she felt sad or worried. "Where did you find this?" Maya asked, turning the crystal over in her hands. Echo made a complex series of sounds and light patterns that Maya was beginning to recognize as his way of trying to communicate. She thought he was telling her about deep caves, places where humans had never been. Maya tried to return the crystal, but Echo wouldn't take it back. He pushed it toward her with his snout and made encouraging sounds. Maya understood this was a gift, something precious that Echo wanted her to have. "Thank you," she said, and Echo's entire body lit up with warm, golden light. Their friendship grew stronger each day. Maya learned to recognize different sounds Echo made. The greeting song when she arrived, a questioning trill when he wanted something, a deep humming sound when he was content. Echo learned to understand simple words and gestures. When Maya pointed, he would look. When she said stay, he would remain still. When she held out her hand, he would gently touch it with his snout, but their secret world was shattered. On a Tuesday morning when Sam got lost, Maya had been visiting Echo when one of Haven's edges. Sudden dust storms rolled in from the desert. The sky turned orange-brown and the wind howled like a living thing. Maya hurried back to the colony, fighting against the stinging sand that cut visibility to just a few feet. At home, she found Ben pacing frantically and Lisa Carter coordinating search teams over her radio. Sam had been playing outside when the storm hit, and now he was missing. "We can't see anything in this weather," Carter was saying. "We'll have to wait for the storm to pass." "He's just a little boy," Ben said, his voice breaking. "He could be hurt, scared." Maya felt her stomach drop into her shoes. Sam was only 8 years old. He didn't know the desert like she did. In a storm like this, he could wander in circles until he collapsed from exhaustion. The search teams went out as soon as the wind died down, but they found nothing. Hours passed. The sun began to set and the temperature started to drop. Desert nights were cold, too cold for a little boy lost in thin clothes. Maya couldn't stand it anymore. While the adults were planning the next phase of the search, she slipped away to the quarry. Echo was waiting for her, his light patterns dim with concern. He seemed to sense her distress immediately and made questioning sounds. "My brother is lost," Maya said, tears streaming down her face. "Sam, my little brother. He's out there somewhere in the desert and we can't find him." Echo listened intently as Maya described what had happened. She drew pictures in the sand, trying to show him how big Sam was, what he looked like. Echo studied the drawings and made thoughtful sounds. Then he did something that surprised Maya. He stood up and walked to the cave entrance, then looked back at her and made an urgent sound. He wanted her to follow him. Maya climbed onto Echo's back, something that would have terrified her weeks ago but now felt as natural as riding a horse. Echo moved through the desert with incredible speed and grace, his 6 legs carrying them smoothly over rocks and sand. His armor glowed softly in the darkness, lighting their way. They searched for what felt like hours. Echo would stop periodically and make soft sounds as if he was listening for something Maya couldn't hear. Each time he would change direction slightly and continue on. Finally, in a rocky outcrop miles from the colony, Echo stopped and made excited sounds. There, huddled in a small cave and barely conscious from cold and fear, was Sam. Sam! Maya slid off Echo's back and ran to her brother. He was alive but barely awake, mumbling deliriously about monsters and lights in the darkness. Echo approached carefully and made gentle sounds. Up close, Maya realized how Sam must see him, a huge alien predator with claws and armor and no visible eyes. But instead of running or attacking, Echo lay down and used his warm body to shelter them both from the cold desert wind. Maya held Sam close and felt Echo's rhythmic breathing beneath them. Her brother's shivering gradually stopped as warmth returned to his small body. In the distance, she could see the lights of the search team still looking in the wrong direction. When Sam was strong enough to walk, Maya helped him climb back onto Echo's back. They rode through the night toward the lights of Haven's Edge. Just before they reached the colony, Maya asked Echo to stop. "You have to go back," she told him. "They won't understand. They'll hurt you if they see you." Echo made sad sounds but seemed to understand. He touched his snout gently to Sam's forehead, then to Maya's. His light patterns pulsed in what Maya had learned was his way of saying goodbye. The search teams found them an hour later, walking slowly toward the colony buildings with Sam leaning on Maya's shoulder. The official story was that a search drone had spotted them, that they had found shelter in the rocks and waited out the cold. But Sam remembered. As the medics checked him over, he kept talking about the nice monster that had kept him warm and carried him home. The adults smiled and attributed his words to delirium and shock. Only Maya knew the truth. Echo had saved her brother's life, had risked his own safety to help a human child he had never met. As she watched the medical team load Sam into a transport, Maya touched the crystal Echo had given her, still warm in her pocket. Tomorrow she would go back to the quarry. She would thank Echo properly and bring him the best food she could find. She would tell him that Sam was safe and that she... The next morning brought chaos to Haven's Edge. Dr. Amanda Foster, the colony's xenobiologist, burst into the morning briefing with data that made everyone's blood run cold. "I found Voidstalker DNA at the site where the children were discovered," she announced, her tablet displaying genetic markers that everyone recognized from security briefings. Fresh samples. The creature was there recently. The colony council chamber fell silent. Ben felt his heart stop as he looked across the table at Lisa Carter, whose expression had turned grim. "You're certain?" Carter asked, though she already knew the answer. Foster was thorough in her work, had been studying alien biology for 20 years. "Completely. The samples are less than 12 hours old. Whatever helped those children, it was a Voidstalker." Foster's voice shook slightly. Everyone knew what these creatures were capable of. The destroyed colonies, the missing ships, the reports from the Outer Rim about attacks that left no survivors. Carter stood up and began pacing. "We need to assume this creature is still in the area. It's either injured, which makes it desperate, or it's scouting for a larger pack. Either way, we're in serious danger." Ben thought about his children, about Sam's confused stories of a nice monster that had kept him warm. He had dismissed it as shock and imagination, but now... "We need professional help," Carter continued. "I'm calling for a hunter team from the inner systems. Until they arrive, no one goes outside the colony perimeter alone. We triple the security patrols and set up sensor nets around the settlement." Maya heard about the lockdown from her classmates before she got home. The whole colony was buzzing with fear and excitement. Children whispered about monsters in the desert. Adults checked and rechecked the security systems. Everyone seemed to be looking over their shoulders. When Maya arrived at their quarters, she found Ben and Sam in the living room. Sam was drawing pictures with his crayons, and Maya's heart sank when she saw what he was creating. The drawing showed a large dark shape with glowing spots and a small figure riding on its back. "Sam," Ben was saying gently, "you know that was just a dream, right? People don't ride on monsters." "It wasn't a dream," Sam insisted, adding more details to his picture. "The nice monster found me and kept me warm. He was gentle like a big cat." "And he glowed!" Maya felt panic rising in her chest. If anyone realized that Sam's dream matched the real appearance of a Void Stalker, they would start asking questions. Questions that would lead them straight to Echo. "Sam," Maya said quickly, sitting down beside him. "Maybe you should draw something else, like the new friends you made at school." But it was too late. Ben was studying the drawing with new attention, comparing it to the security briefings he had been reading all afternoon. The resemblance was unmistakable. That evening, after Sam had gone to bed, Ben sat down with Maya for a serious conversation. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth," he said. "Have you seen anything unusual during your morning walks? Any animals that don't belong here?" Maya's mouth went dry. She could see the concern in her father's eyes, could hear the fear he was trying to hide, but she could also hear Echo's gentle wail songs, could remember the way he had risked everything to save Sam. "No, Dad," she lied. "Just rocks and sand and old mining equipment." Ben studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but Maya, I need you to promise me something. No more walks outside the colony, not until we know it's safe," Maya promised, but her fingers were crossed behind her back. Dr. Foster spent the next few days analyzing every piece of data she could find about the rescue. She studied soil samples, tracked weather patterns, interviewed the search teams. The more she learned, the more confused she became. The DNA evidence was clear. A Void Stalker had been at the rescue site, but other evidence didn't match the standard profile of these creatures. There were no territorial markings, no signs of aggressive behavior, no evidence of hunting or feeding. Instead, there were traces of human food and medical supplies. "It doesn't make sense," Foster told Carter during their daily briefing. "Everything we know about Void Stalkers says they're solitary predators. They don't help other species. They don't form attachments. They certainly don't rescue lost children." Carter was more focused on practical concerns. Maybe this one is different. Injured, confused, acting on instinct rather than intelligence. Either way, it's too dangerous to leave alive. The hunter team arrived 3 days later. Captain Roy Henderson was exactly what Maya had expected. Cold, efficient, and completely without sympathy for anything that wasn't human. He brought with him a team of specialists, advanced tracking equipment, and weapons designed specifically for killing Void Stalkers. "These creatures are clever," Henderson explained to the gathered colonists. "They can mimic sounds, hide their presence, even show behaviors that might seem friendly or protective. Don't be fooled. A Void Stalker will kill you the moment you let your guard down." Maya sat in the back of the assembly hall feeling sick. Henderson was describing Echo as if he were talking about a dangerous machine, rather than a living being with thoughts and feelings. She watched her neighbors nod in agreement, saw the fear and hatred in their faces. That night, Maya broke her promise to her father. She slipped out of the house while everyone was asleep and made her way to the quarry. She had to warn Echo, had to tell him to run before the hunters found him. Echo was waiting for her at the cave entrance, his light patterns dim with concern. He had sensed the change in the colony's mood, the increased patrols, the tension that filled the air. "You have to leave," Maya told him, tears streaming down her face. "They know you're here. They're going to hunt you." Echo made questioning sounds, and Maya tried to explain about the DNA samples, about the hunters, about what would happen if they found him. Echo listened intently, his patterns shifting from confusion to understanding to something that looked like sadness. He approached Maya and touched her face gently with his snout, the way he always did when she was upset. Then he made a complex series of sounds that Maya had never heard before. The patterns on his armor flowed in new configurations, warmer and brighter than usual. Maya didn't understand the words, but she understood the meaning. Echo was trying to tell her something important, something about family and protection and promises that couldn't be broken. "I wish I could understand you better," Maya whispered. "I wish I could tell them who you really are." Echo made more sounds, and this time Maya caught something familiar in the rhythm. He was trying to copy the sounds she had made when she talked about Sam, about her family, about the people she loved. Echo was telling her that he understood about family, that he had family too. Maya spent an hour with Echo trying to convince him to leave Haven's Edge behind. But every time she pointed toward the desert, toward safety, Echo would make the family sounds again and touch her hand with his snout. He wasn't going to leave her. Not when she might be in danger. When Maya finally returned home, she found Lisa Carter waiting in the living room with her father. Ben's face was grim, and Carter looked like she had been awake for days. "We tracked your movements, Maya," Carter said without preamble. "The motion sensors picked you up leaving the colony. Where did you go?" Maya's mind raced. She could see that they already suspected the truth, but maybe she could still protect Echo if she was clever about her lies. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "I wanted to see the stars without all the colony lights." "The stars," Carter repeated. "In the middle of a lockdown, when we've told everyone that there's a dangerous predator in the area." Ben leaned forward in his chair. "Maya, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Dr. Foster found something else today. She found evidence that someone has been feeding the creature, bringing it medical supplies. Someone has been helping it." Maya felt her world crashing down around her. They knew. Maybe they didn't have all the details yet, but they knew enough to be dangerous. "If someone is helping this creature," Carter continued, "they're putting the entire colony at risk. They're committing treason against their own species." The word treason hit Maya like a physical blow. She thought about Echo's gentleness, his intelligence, the way he had saved Sam without being asked. If protecting that made her a traitor, then maybe being a traitor wasn't such a bad thing. But she also thought about her father, about Sam, about the other colonists who trusted her. How could she explain that everything they had been taught about Void Stalkers was wrong? How could she make them understand that Echo was different? "I want to help," Maya said finally. "If there's a dangerous creature out there, I want to help find it." Carter and Ben exchanged glances. Maya could see they weren't entirely convinced, but they also weren't ready to accuse a 12-year-old girl of collaborating with humanity's greatest enemy. "All right," Carter said, "but from now on you don't leave the colony without an escort. And if you see anything at all, you report it immediately." Maya nodded and went to her room, her mind spinning with plans and possibilities. The hunters would start their search tomorrow. She had maybe one more chance to convince Echo to run before they found him, but deep down Maya knew that Echo wouldn't leave. He had tried to tell her about family. Captain Henderson's hunting team moved like a well-oiled machine. They set up their base camp at the edge of the colony, a collection of gray tents filled with equipment that Maya didn't recognize but somehow knew was designed for killing. She watched from her bedroom window as they assembled sensor arrays, loaded weapons that hummed with electrical energy, and released small flying drones that buzzed through the air like mechanical insects. "Impressive setup," Ben said, joining Maya at the window. He was trying to sound casual, but Maya could hear the worry in his voice. "Henderson has a reputation for efficiency. This will all be over soon." Maya nodded but said nothing. She had been awake most of the night, torn between her promise to stay inside the colony and her desperate need to warn Echo. Through her window, she could see the abandoned quarry in the distance, quiet and still under the morning sun. She wondered if Echo could sense the danger approaching. Dr. Foster knocked on their door just after breakfast. She looked tired and frustrated, carrying a tablet loaded with research data. "I need to speak with Maya," she told Ben, about what she might have seen during her walks. They sat in the living room while Sam played with his toys in the corner. Foster pulled up images on her tablet, pictures of Void Stalker tracks, feeding signs, territorial markers. "These creatures follow predictable patterns," Foster explained. "They mark territory with scent glands, hunt in specific ways, leave evidence of their presence. But I'm not finding any of that here." Maya tried to look interested while her heart pounded. Maybe it left already. Maybe. Or maybe it's behaving differently than usual. Foster leaned forward. "Maya, I know you've been exploring the desert. Did you ever see anything that looked like this?" Foster showed her pictures of Voidstalker bioluminescence, the characteristic light patterns that covered their armor. Maya recognized them immediately. They looked exactly like Echo's colors when he was happy or trying to communicate. "No," Maya lied. "I would have remembered something like that." Foster studied her face carefully. "The DNA samples I found were very fresh. Whatever creature left them was probably injured, possibly seeking shelter in the old mining areas. If you saw anything, even something that seemed harmless, it could be important." Maya felt trapped between her loyalty to Echo and her respect for Dr. Foster, who had always been kind to her. Foster was a scientist, someone who studied life rather than destroying it. Maybe she would understand if Maya told her the truth about Echo. But before Maya could make up her mind, Henderson's voice crackled over Foster's radio. "All teams, We have movement in Grid 7. Possible target sighting. Moving to investigate, Foster stood up quickly. I have to go. Maya, if you remember anything at all, please tell your father immediately. Maya watched through the window as Foster ran toward the hunting camp. Henderson's team was already moving, loading into vehicles that sped toward the quarry. Maya felt sick watching them go. Grid 7 was exactly where Echo liked to rest during the day. She had to do something. But what? She was 12 years old, trapped inside the colony by security protocols and her father's watchful eye. Even if she could get past the guards, what could she do against trained hunters with military weapons? The radio traffic continued throughout the morning. Henderson's teams found tracks in the sand, traces of bioluminescent residue, signs that a large creature had been in the area recently, but they found no creature. It's hiding deeper in the caves, Henderson reported. These things are clever. It knows we're hunting it. Maya felt a moment of relief. Echo had escaped the immediate danger. But she also knew that Henderson wouldn't give up easily. He would keep searching until he found what he was looking for. At lunch, Ben received a message that made his face go pale. Henderson wants to expand the search grid. He's requesting permission to use pheromone lures. Maya didn't know what pheromone lures were, but Dr. Foster's expression suggested they were bad news. Those are designed to trigger aggressive responses, Foster said. They make void stalkers attack anything nearby. It's dangerous, especially with civilians in the area. Henderson says it's the fastest way to flush the creature out of hiding, Ben replied. The Colony Council has already approved it. Maya felt her world spinning out of control. They were going to use Echo's own biology against him, make him lose control and attack so they would have an excuse to kill him. It wasn't fair. Echo had never hurt anyone, had actually saved a human life, but none of that mattered to the hunters. That afternoon, Maya made a decision that would change everything. While Ben was in meetings and Sam was at school, she slipped past the security checkpoint by hiding in a supply truck. The guards were focused on keeping things out of the colony, not preventing a young girl from leaving. Maya knew exactly where to find Echo. He had shown her his favorite hiding places during their weeks together, the deep caves where old mining tunnels connected to natural formations. She found him in a cavern 3 levels down from the main quarry, his light patterns dim with stress and confusion. They're coming for you, Maya said as soon as she saw him. They have weapons and traps and things that will make you angry so you'll attack them. Echo made worried sounds and touched her face with his snout. His patterns shifted to concerned blues and purples. Colors Maya had learned meant he was upset about her safety. You have to run, Maya continued. Go deep into the desert where they can't follow. I'll find a way to contact you later, but right now you have to get away from here. But Echo wouldn't listen. Every time Maya pointed toward the deeper tunnels, toward escape routes that led away from the colony, Echo would make the family sounds again and move closer to her. He was trying to tell her that he wouldn't abandon her, that protecting her was more important than his own safety. Maya spent an hour arguing with a creature who couldn't understand her words, but perfectly understood her emotions. Echo knew she was afraid for him, and that made him more determined to stay close and protect her from whatever was causing her distress. Finally, in frustration and desperation, Maya did something that surprised both of them. She wrapped her arms around Echo's massive neck and pressed her face against his warm armor. Please, she whispered. I love you like a brother. That's why I need you to go. Brothers protect each other, and the way you can protect me is by staying alive. Echo went very still. His light pattern shifted to colors Maya had never seen before, deep golds and silvers that seemed to flow like liquid across his armor. He made sounds that were different from his usual whale songs, more complex and musical. Maya understood that Echo was trying to tell her something important in his own language, something about family and sacrifice and promises. When he finished, he gently pushed her away from him and moved to the cave entrance. But instead of heading toward the escape tunnels, Echo began moving toward the surface, toward the colony. Maya realized with growing horror that Echo had misunderstood her completely. He thought she was asking him to protect her more actively, to come closer to the human settlement where he could watch over her. No, Maya ran after him. That's not what I meant. You have to go the other way. Echo paused and looked back at her, his patterns shifting to confused spirals. Maya could see that he was trying to understand why she was upset when he was doing exactly what she had asked. putting her safety above his own. Before Maya could explain, the sound of engines echoed through the quarry. Henderson's teams had returned with new equipment, larger vehicles, and what looked like military-grade sensors. Maya could hear Henderson's voice over their radio systems, coordinating search patterns that would cover every cave and tunnel in the area. Echo heard them too. His patterns shifted to warning colors, dark reds and oranges that Maya had never seen before. For the first time since she had known him, Echo looked dangerous. His claws extended, his posture changed, and he made sounds that were nothing like his usual gentle whale songs. Maya realized that the pheromone lures were already working. Whatever chemicals they were releasing into the air were affecting Echo's behavior, making him aggressive and territorial. The gentle creature who had saved her brother was disappearing, replaced by something that looked like the monsters from the security briefings. "Fight it," Maya pleaded. "You're stronger than they think. Don't let them change you." Echo struggled visibly against whatever was happening to his mind. His patterns flickered between the angry reds and his normal gentle colors. Maya could see him trying to remember who he was, trying to hold on to the bond they had formed. But the chemical influence was too strong. With a sound that was part roar and part whale song, Echo charged toward the surface, toward the hunters who were waiting for exactly this response. Maya ran after him, screaming warnings that no one could hear over the sound of engines and weapons charging. She reached the quarry rim just in time to see Henderson's team surround the cave entrance where Echo had emerged. "Target acquired." Henderson's voice boomed over the speakers. "All units, prepare to engage." Maya saw Echo burst from the cave, his entire body blazing with angry light, claws extended and armor plates flared for combat. He looked like every nightmare humans had ever had about void stalkers, like the perfect justification for every act of violence committed against his species. But Maya could still see traces of her friend in his movements. Could see him Phi. The battle in the quarry lasted 3 hours. Echo fought like something out of humanity's darkest nightmares, but also like something trying desperately to remember who it used to be. Maya watched from the colony perimeter as energy blasts lit up the desert night, watched Echo dodge between rocks and abandoned mining equipment while Henderson's teams pursued him with military precision. Ben held Maya's shoulders firmly, preventing her from running toward the combat zone. "It's too dangerous," he kept saying. "Stay back." But Maya could see things that the adults missed. She could see Echo avoiding shots that would have been easy to make. Could see him deliberately steering the fight away from the colony buildings where civilians might be hurt. Even under the influence of the pheromone lures, even driven to artificial rage, Echo was still trying to protect the innocent. "He's not trying to hurt anyone," Maya said to her father. "Can't you see? He keeps moving the fight away from us." Ben wasn't listening. He was focused on the tactical reports coming over Lisa Carter's radio, on the professional assessment that this was a dangerous predator being handled by experts. The turning point came when Henderson made a critical mistake. In his eagerness to corner Echo, the captain ordered his teams to use heavier weapons, military-grade energy cannons that had been designed for ship-to-ship combat. The first shot missed Echo but struck the wall of an old mining tunnel, causing a massive collapse. The second shot found its target. Echo screamed, a sound unlike anything Maya had ever heard. The energy blast had caught him across the side, burning through his armor and sending him tumbling into a deep pit where old mining equipment had been stored. For several minutes, everything was silent. "Target down," Henderson reported with satisfaction, moving in to confirm the kill. Maya felt something break inside her chest. She pulled free from her father's grip and ran toward the quarry before anyone could stop her. Behind her, she could hear Ben calling her name, could hear security teams mobilizing to follow her. Maya reached the edge of the pit just as Henderson's teams were setting up lights to illuminate the bottom. She looked down and saw Echo lying motionless among twisted metal and broken stone, his light patterns dim and flickering like a dying flashlight. "Don't go down there," Henderson called to his men. "These creatures can fake death." "Hit it again from up here." "No," Maya screamed, and before anyone could stop her, she jumped into the pit. The drop was farther than she had expected. Maya hit the ground hard and felt pain shoot up her leg, but she ignored it and crawled toward Echo. Up close, she could see that the energy weapon had burned a terrible wound across his side. His armor was cracked and dark fluid seeped from the injury. But Echo was alive, When Maya touched his face, his patterns brightened slightly and he made a weak sound that she recognized as her name in his whale song language. "I'm here," Maya whispered. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry they did this to you." Above them, she could hear Henderson shouting orders, could hear the whine of energy weapons charging for another shot. They were going to kill Echo while she held him. Were going to murder her friend right in front of her. Maya stood up and put herself between Echo and the hunters above. "Stop!" she screamed. "Don't shoot!" The lights above focused on her, turning the pit into a theater stage. Maya could see Henderson and his team looking down at her, could see the shock on their faces as they realized a human child was protecting their target. "Maya," Ben's voice echoed from the rim of the pit. "Get away from that thing. It's dangerous." "No, he's not," Maya shouted back. "His name is Echo and he saved Sam's life. He's gentle and kind and he's never hurt anyone." Henderson leaned over the edge of the pit, his expression cold and professional. "Step away from the creature, child. You're in shock. You don't understand what you're dealing with. I understand better than you do." Maya felt tears streaming down her face, but her voice was strong. "You used chemicals to make him angry. You made him attack you. Echo would never hurt anyone if you hadn't poisoned his mind." Dr. Foster appeared at the rim of the pit, her face pale in the artificial light. "Maya, those are pheromone lures. They don't create aggression in void stalkers, they just trigger existing predatory instincts. The creature was always dangerous. You're wrong." Maya put her hands on Echo's massive head, and his patterns responded with weak but unmistakable affection. "Look at him. Really, look. Does he look like he wants to hurt me?" The adults above stared down at the impossible scene. A young human girl cradling the head of humanity's most feared enemy, a creature that should have killed her the moment she came within reach. Echo struggled to lift his head, his movements weak but determined. He looked up at the humans gathered around the pit, and made sounds that even the adults could recognize as non-threatening. His light patterns shifted to the gentle colors Maya knew meant he was trying to communicate peacefully. "That's impossible," Henderson muttered. "Void stalkers don't form emotional bonds with other species. They don't show protective behaviors toward non-pack members." "Then maybe," said a new voice, "everything we think we know about void stalkers is wrong." Dr. Foster was studying Echo with new eyes, taking readings with handheld instruments. "The chemical traces are all wrong for a typical void stalker. And look at his behavior pattern." Maya seized the opportunity. "He brings me gifts," she said. "Crystals from deep caves, flowers, interesting rocks." He learned to understand human words. "He saved my brother during the dust storm." "The DNA evidence," Foster said slowly. "Maya, how long have you been caring for this creature?" Maya knew there was no point in lying anymore. "Since the day after we arrived. He was hurt, bleeding. I brought him food and water and medical supplies." Ben's voice came from above, tight with shock and fear. "Maya, are you telling us you've been friends with this creature for weeks?" "He's not a creature," Maya said fiercely. "He's Echo, and he's my brother." The word brother seemed to mean something to Echo, despite his injuries. He managed to make the complex sound patterns that Maya had learned were his way of talking about family. Even weakened and hurt, he was trying to tell the humans above that Maya was under his protection. Henderson raised his weapon. "Enough of this. The creature is wounded and contained. We finish this now." "Wait," Dr. Foster held up her hand. "Captain, I need to run more tests. This behavior is unprecedented. We might learn something important." "We know everything we need to know about void stalkers," Henderson replied. "They're killers. This one might have formed some kind of abnormal attachment to the girl, but that doesn't change what it is." Maya felt Echo's breathing growing weaker beneath her hands. The energy weapon had done terrible damage, and he was losing too much blood. Without medical attention, he would die soon whether Henderson shot him again or not. "Please," Maya said, looking up at her father. "Let Dr. Foster help him. He's dying anyway. What harm could it do to try to save him?" Ben looked torn between his duty as colony administrator and his love for his daughter. Maya could see him struggling with the impossible situation, trying to balance the safety of hundreds of colonists against the desperate plea of his child. The decision was made for him when Sam appeared at the edge of the pit. Maya's 8-year-old brother had somehow escaped from the quarters where he was supposed to be sleeping. He looked down into the pit and saw Echo lying wounded and motionless. "The nice monster," Sam called out. "Is he hurt?" Can the doctors help him? Henderson stared at Sam in disbelief. You've seen this creature before? He kept me warm when I was lost, Sam said matter-of-factly. He was gentle and soft, and he made pretty lights. Maya said his name is Echo. Dr. Foster looked from Sam to Maya to the wounded creature in the pit. 2 children, 2 separate encounters, both resulting in protective behavior rather than predation. She turned to Ben with excitement in her voice. Administrator, this could change everything we understand about interspecies contact. We have an opportunity to study peaceful interaction with a species we've always considered hostile. Henderson's weapon remained trained on Echo. Or we have a security breach that's put the entire colony at risk. My orders are to eliminate Voidstalker threats. Your orders, Ben said quietly, are to protect this colony. If there's a chance this creature isn't a threat, if there's a possibility we've been wrong about their species, then we need to explore that possibility. Maya held her breath as her father made the decision that would determine Echo's fate. Dr. Foster, you have 12 hours to stabilize the creature and conduct your tests. If it shows any sign of aggression, any indication that it poses a threat to colonists, Captain Henderson will complete his mission. Henderson lowered his weapon reluctantly. 12 hours, he agreed. But I'm posting guards, and the moment that thing moves wrong, it's dead. Maya felt a surge of hope as medical teams prepared to descend into the pit. Echo was going to get help. He was going to have a chance to show the adults who he really was, but Maya also knew that 12 hours might not be enough to change decades of fear and misunderstanding. Echo would have to recover from his injuries and prove his peaceful intentions to people who had been trained to see him as a monster. As the medics worked to stabilize Echo's wounds, Maya whispered promises in his ear. Dr. Foster worked through the night with a medical team that had never treated anything like Echo before. They set up a temporary surgical unit in the quarry, using human medical equipment adapted for an alien physiology that nobody truly understood. Maya refused to leave Echo's side, translating his responses to pain and comfort for doctors who couldn't read his bioluminescent language. His armor is actually living tissue, Foster explained as she cleaned Echo's wounds. It's like a second skin that can heal itself. But the energy weapon disrupted the cellular structure. We're essentially treating burns on an organism that's part animal, part plant, and part something we don't have words for. Echo remained conscious throughout the treatment, his light patterns dim but responsive. When the medical procedures caused him pain, Maya would talk to him in the gentle tone she had learned he responded to, and his patterns would shift to calmer colors. When he was comfortable, he would make soft whale song sounds that the medical team gradually learned meant gratitude. Remarkable, Foster murmured as she worked. Look at his responses to Maya's voice. The stress hormones in his blood drop dramatically when she speaks to him. He's not just intelligent, he's emotionally bonded to her. Captain Henderson watched from the edge of the medical area, his expression skeptical. Emotional bonds don't mean much when survival instincts kick in. I've seen bonded animals turn on their handlers when they felt threatened. But as the hours passed, Henderson's certainty began to waver. Echo had multiple opportunities to lash out during painful medical procedures, had been startled by unfamiliar equipment and strange sounds, had been handled by humans he had never met before. Each time his first response was to look for Maya, to seek reassurance from her before reacting to anything else. He's protecting her even while he's being treated, Foster observed. Watch, when I approach with a new instrument. He positions himself between me and Maya. He's not trying to attack me. He's trying to shield her from perceived danger. Maya dozed fitfully beside Echo through the long night, waking whenever his patterns changed or when he made sounds that indicated discomfort. She found herself thinking about all the moments over the past weeks when Echo had shown intelligence and emotion that nobody believed existed in his species. The gifts he brought her weren't random objects. They were things he thought she would find beautiful or interesting. The way he learned to understand human words wasn't just conditioning, he was genuinely trying to communicate. His decision to save Sam hadn't been instinct. It had been a conscious choice to help someone Maya cared about. When dawn broke over Haven's Edge, Echo was stable, but still weak. The medical team had managed to stop the bleeding and begin the process of cellular regeneration in his damaged armor. Foster estimated he would need several more days to fully recover, time that Captain Henderson was not prepared to give. 12 hours are up," Henderson announced as the sun rose. "I've seen enough. The creature is contained and wounded. This is our best chance to eliminate the threat permanently." Maya felt panic rising in her chest. Echo had been gentle and cooperative throughout the night, had shown nothing but peaceful intentions despite being hurt and surrounded by strangers. How could Henderson still see him as a threat? "Wait," Foster said. "Captain, I need to show you something." Foster had been analyzing samples of Echo's bioluminescent secretions throughout the night. She pulled up data on her tablet that made Henderson frown with confusion. "These aren't random light patterns," Foster explained. "They're complex linguistic structures. This creature has been trying to communicate with us all night using a sophisticated language system." Maya sat up straighter. "I told you he was smart. I told you he could understand us." Foster nodded. "Maya, can you tell me what different colors mean when Echo makes them?" Maya looked at Echo, who was watching the conversation with obvious interest. His patterns were currently a soft blue-green that Maya had learned indicated careful attention. "Blue means he's listening," Maya explained. "Green means he's comfortable or happy. Gold means he wants to communicate something important. Red means he's worried or scared." Foster typed notes rapidly. "What about when he makes sounds? Do different sounds mean different things?" Maya demonstrated, making some of the whale song sounds she had learned from Echo. Echo responded immediately, his patterns brightening as he answered in more complex musical phrases. "They're talking," Foster breathed. "An alien species and a human child are having a conversation." Henderson remained unmoved. "Parrots can talk too. That doesn't make them people." But Dr. Foster wasn't finished. "Captain, there's something else. I've been analyzing the genetic samples I collected over the past few days. This creature isn't alone." The announcement sent a chill through everyone present. Ben stepped forward, his face pale. "How many others?" "At least 3, possibly more. They're staying in the deep cave systems, out of range of our sensors. But Captain, here's the interesting part. They're not behaving like a hunting pack. They're behaving like a family group." Foster pulled up more data. "The genetic markers suggest a breeding pair and offspring. This isn't a group of solitary predators who happen to gather in one place. This is a family unit." Maya felt her heart skip. Echo had family here. Other creatures like him who were hiding in the caves. She thought about his attempts to communicate about family, about the complex sounds he made when she talked about Sam and Ben. "Where are they?" Maya asked. Foster pointed toward the deeper parts of the cave system. "Miles underground in caverns our equipment can barely detect. They've been there for weeks, possibly months." Henderson's expression grew more serious. "A breeding colony. That's even worse than a single predator. We need to call for orbital bombardment, seal the cave system permanently." "No." Maya jumped to her feet. "They're not hurting anyone. They're just trying to find a safe place to live." "Maya's right," Foster said. "Captain, think about this logically. They've been here for months without attacking the colony. They rescued a lost human child. One of them has formed a protective bond with a colonist. These aren't the behaviors of aggressive predators." Ben looked torn between his responsibilities as administrator and his growing understanding of what his daughter had discovered. "Dr. Foster, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that everything we know about void stalkers might be wrong. I'm suggesting that we might be looking at first contact with a peaceful alien species, and we're about to commit genocide based on outdated assumptions." Henderson laughed harshly. "Peaceful? Doctor, these creatures have wiped out entire colonies. The historical record is clear." "The historical record," Foster replied, "shows encounters between desperate refugees and territorial humans. What if the Void Stalkers weren't attacking our colonies? What if they were fleeing something else and we got in their way?" Maya remembered Echo's attempts to communicate about family, about protection, about running from something that scared him. "Dr. Foster, do you think Echo and his family are refugees?" Foster nodded slowly. "It would explain everything. The defensive behaviors, the family groupings, the way they avoid direct confrontation when possible. They're not predators, Maya. They're survivors." As if responding to the conversation, Echo made a series of complex sounds that grew increasingly urgent. His light patterns shifted to warning colors, dark oranges and reds that Maya had only seen once before. "What's wrong?" Maya asked, moving closer to Echo. Echo struggled to lift his head, pointing with his snout toward the sky. His patterns pulsed in rapid, agitated sequences while he made sounds that seemed almost frantic. Dr. Foster checked her instruments and went pale. Something's coming. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive object approaching the system. Ben activated his communication device. Control, this is Administrator Johnson. Report on the incoming contact. The response crackled with static and fear. Sir, we're tracking a fleet of unknown ships. They're big, moving fast, and they're not responding to our hails. Henderson was already moving toward his equipment. How long until they arrive? 6 hours, maybe less. Maya looked at Echo, who was still making urgent warning sounds. His family had been hiding in the caves for months. Had been avoiding human contact not because they were predators, but because they were afraid of something else. They're not hiding from us, Maya said suddenly. Echo and his family, they're hiding from whoever is coming. Foster's eyes widened with understanding. The Void Stalkers aren't the threat. They're trying to warn us about the real threat. As if in response to her words, Echo made one final desperate sound that echoed through the quarry like a battle cry. His light patterns blazed with colors Maya had never seen before. Patterns that seemed to spell out a single urgent message. The enemy was coming, and only together could they hope to survive. The ships that emerged from hyperspace looked like they had been built by machines for machines. Maya watched from the colony's observation deck as the fleet took positions around Haven's Edge, their hulls gleaming metal in sharp angles that hurt to look at directly. There were no windows, no obvious weapons ports, no signs that living beings had ever touched their construction. Harvesters, Dr. Foster whispered, reading the data streaming across her instruments. I've heard rumors, stories from the Outer Rim colonies. They strip planets bare, take everything of value and leave nothing behind. Echo had been moved to the colony's medical facility after his warnings about the approaching fleet proved accurate. Despite his injuries, he had insisted on being brought to where he could see the sky, his light patterns pulsing with agitation as the alien ships took their positions. How many? Ben asked, his face grim as he studied tactical displays. Lisa Carter shook her head. 17 ships that we can detect, each one larger than anything in our fleet. Our weapons won't even scratch their hulls. Captain Henderson stood at the center of the command room, his expression thoughtful for the first time since arriving at Haven's Edge. Why haven't they attacked yet? If they wanted to destroy the colony, they could have done it the moment they arrived. Maya was sitting beside Echo in the medical bay, watching his light patterns for clues about what was happening. Echo seemed to be trying to tell her something important, making complex sounds while his armor flickered through color sequences she had never seen before. He's trying to warn us about something, Maya called to the adults. I think he knows what these ships want. Dr. Foster hurried over with her translation equipment. Over the past few hours, she had made remarkable progress in understanding Echo's bioluminescent language. Maya, ask him about the ships. Ask him if he's seen them before. Maya touched Echo's face gently and spoke in the mixture of human words and whale song sounds that had become their private language. Echo, have you seen the metal ships before? Are they the ones your family is running from? Echo's response was immediate and terrifying. His entire body blazed with angry red light while he made sounds that needed no translation. These were the sounds of fear, of pain, of loss too great to bear. They destroyed his homeworld, Foster said quietly, reading the emotional resonance in Echo's patterns. His species, they're refugees from harvester attacks. Through the colony's communication system, a new voice crackled to life. It was mechanical, emotionless, speaking in perfectly articulated human words. Human colony designation Haven's Edge. You have 48 hours to evacuate this system. All mineral resources and biological samples will be collected for processing. Resistance will result in immediate termination. The communication ended without waiting for a response. In the silence that followed, Maya could hear the sound of Echo's distressed whale songs, the whispered prayers of colonists who knew they had nowhere to run. 48 hours, Ben said. We can't evacuate everyone in 48 hours. The transport ships would need a week to get here. Henderson was studying tactical data with growing desperation. Even if we could evacuate, where would we go? The harvesters will strip this entire system. They'll take everything. The minerals, the atmosphere, even the organic compounds in the soil. Maya felt Echo's massive head turn toward her, felt his snout touch her hand with gentle pressure. His light patterns had shifted to deep blues and purples, colors she recognized as his way of preparing for something dangerous but necessary. He wants to help, Maya said suddenly. Echo wants to fight them. The adults looked at her with expressions ranging from disbelief to desperate hope. "Maya," Ben said gently, "Echo is badly injured. Even if he wasn't, one creature can't fight an entire fleet." But Echo was making sounds that grew more insistent, his patterns spelling out concepts that Dr. Foster was beginning to understand. "He's not talking about fighting alone," Foster said. "He's talking about his family. They're all down in the caves and they have something that might help us." Over the next few hours, a desperate plan began to take shape. Echo's family had been living in the deep cave systems for months, preparing for exactly this kind of encounter. They had brought with them technology that the humans couldn't understand but desperately needed. Maya served as translator while Echo communicated the basics to Dr. Foster. The creatures that humans called Voidstalkers were actually called something that roughly translated to deep swimmers in their own language. They were engineers and warriors from a civilization that had been fighting the Harvesters for generations. "They know how Harvester technology works," Foster explained to the Colony Council. "They've been studying it, developing countermeasures. The bioluminescence isn't just communication. It's a form of organic computing that can interface with both biological and mechanical systems." Captain Henderson remained skeptical. "Even if that's true, we're talking about 17 ships against a handful of aliens and 300 human colonists. The odds are impossible." Maya looked at Echo, whose patterns had shifted to determined golds and silvers. "Echo says the odds have been impossible before. His people have survived by being smarter than the Harvesters, by working together instead of fighting alone." The first step was establishing contact with Echo's family. Despite his injuries, Echo insisted on being moved to the quarry where he could communicate with the other deep swimmers in the caves below. Maya stayed with him, helping to translate as complex light patterns pulsed between Echo and the darkness underground. "They're coming up," Foster announced after an hour of communication. "They're bringing equipment." What emerged from the caves looked like humanity's nightmares made real. 3 adult deep swimmers, each as large as Echo, their armor blazing with warning colors as they approached the human settlement. Behind them came 2 juveniles, smaller but still larger than humans, their patterns flickering with curiosity and fear. The colonists who witnessed the emergence would later describe it as the most terrifying and beautiful sight they had ever seen. The deep swimmers moved like liquid shadows, their bioluminescence creating patterns of light that seemed to dance through the darkness. They carried organic technology that pulsed with its own inner light, devices that looked grown rather than manufactured. Maya was the first human to approach the new arrivals. Echo's family recognized her immediately. Their patterns shifting to the gentle colors she had learned meant acceptance and protection. The largest adult, who Maya assumed was Echo's parent, touched her face with the same gentle gesture that Echo used. "They remember me from Echo's descriptions," Maya explained to the amazed adults. "They know I'm part of their family now." Dr. Foster studied the organic technology the deep swimmers had brought from the caves. "This is incredible. It's like they've learned to grow computers to program living organisms for specific tasks. This device here, I think it's designed to interface with Harvester control systems." Captain Henderson examined the biotech weapons with professional interest. "Can they really hurt those ships?" The answer came from Echo's parent, who communicated through Foster's translation equipment. The deep swimmers couldn't destroy the Harvester fleet. They didn't have that kind of firepower. But they could do something else, something that required human cooperation. "They can turn the Harvester's own technology against them," Foster explained. "But they need us to get close enough to the ships to plant interface devices. It's a suicide mission by any reasonable standard." Maya felt Echo's snout touch her shoulder. His patterns were asking a question, one she understood without need for translation. "He wants to know if I trust him," Maya told the adults. "If I trust his family to protect us while we try to save everyone." Ben knelt down beside his daughter, his face showing the weight of an impossible decision. "Maya, this isn't your choice to make. You're 12 years old. I'm 12 years old and Echo is my brother," Maya replied. "His family accepted me as one of them. If they're willing to fight for our colony, then we should be willing to fight beside them." Captain Henderson studied the assembled deep swimmers, their organic weapons, their alien technology that might be humanity's only hope. "It's completely insane," he said finally, "but it's the only plan we have." As the colony prepared for battle, Maya sat with Echo and watched his family work alongside human engineers and soldiers. Species that had been enemies just hours before were now sharing technology, coordinating strategies, preparing to face a common threat that would destroy them both if they failed. Echo's patterns pulsed with colors that Maya had learned meant hope, mixed with determination. Tomorrow they would discover whether the bond between a human girl and an alien refugee was strong enough to save two worlds. "We're going to win," Maya whispered to Echo. "We're going to show those harvesters what happens when families fight together." Echo's response filled the night with whale songs that sounded almost like laughter. The harvester attack began at dawn with mechanical precision. The alien ships descended through Haven's Edge's atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls gleaming in the morning light as they began the systematic destruction of everything humans had built on the planet Maya. Watched from the colony's command center as the first energy beams carved through the outer mining facilities, reducing years of human work to molten slag in seconds. The harvesters worked methodically, destroying infrastructure first, then moving inward toward the population centers. "All defensive positions report ready," Lisa Carter announced over the communication system, but everyone knew that human weapons would barely scratch the harvester ships. Their only hope lay in the desperate plan that Echo's family had helped devise. Echo lay beside Maya in the command center, still recovering from his injuries but insisting on being part of the battle coordination. His light patterns pulsed in steady rhythms as he communicated with his family members, who had taken positions throughout the colony's defensive network. "The interface devices are in position," Dr. Foster reported. "Echo's parents have placed the biotech connectors on the power grid, water systems, and communication arrays. When the harvesters try to tap into our infrastructure, the devices will activate." Captain Henderson studied the tactical display with grim determination. "And then what?" "We still can't hurt those ships directly." Echo made a series of complex sounds. His pattern shifting to colors that Maya had learned meant watch and learn. Through the translation equipment, his message was clear. The deep swimmers weren't planning to destroy the harvester ships. They were planning to capture them. The first harvester ground units landed near the colony perimeter, mechanical drones that moved like giant spiders, each one armed with energy weapons and equipped with sensors that could detect any form of resistance. The human defenders opened fire, their bullets and energy blasts barely slowing the advancing machines. Then Echo's family revealed what they had been preparing for months in the deep caves, the adult deep. Swimmers emerged from hidden positions throughout the colony, their bioluminescent armor blazing with patterns too complex for human eyes to follow. But the harvester drones could see the patterns, and Maya watched in amazement as the mechanical invaders began to slow, then stop, then turn on each other. "The light patterns are a form of programming language," Foster explained in wonder. "They're hacking the harvester drones using bioluminescence as a carrier signal." Echo's parent, the largest of the deep swimmers, approached a group of disabled harvester drones and placed a clawed hand on their metal surfaces. The drones' eyes flickered from hostile red to gentle blue, and they began moving in formation with their new programmer. "Incredible," Henderson breathed. "They're turning the harvesters' own forces against them." But the real battle was just beginning. The harvester ships detected the loss of their ground units and responded by landing larger forces. Massive mechanical constructs that looked like walking buildings, armed with weapons that could level city blocks. Maya felt Echo's distress as his injured body prevented him from joining the fight directly. His patterns pulsed with frustrated energy as he watched his family risk everything to protect the human colony. "You are helping," Maya told him, placing her hand on his warm armor. "You're coordinating everyone, making sure the plan works." Echo's youngest sibling, barely larger than Maya herself, bounded into the command center with news from the outer defenses. Through rapid light patterns, the juvenile reported that the biotech interface devices were working. The harvesters were inadvertently connecting to systems that the deep swimmers could control. "Now comes the dangerous part," Foster said. "Someone has to get close enough to the main harvester ships to plant interface devices directly on their hulls." Captain Henderson was already suiting up in combat armor. "I'll take a team of volunteers. If we can disable even one of those ships, it might give us a chance." But Echo made urgent sounds that stopped Henderson in his tracks. Through the translation equipment, Echo's message was clear. Humans couldn't survive the approach to the harvester ships. The energy fields around the vessels would kill any organic life that came too close. Then how do we plant the devices? Henderson asked. Echo's answer came in the form of action rather than words. Despite his injuries, despite Maya's protests, Echo struggled to his feet and began moving toward the colony's exit. His light patterns blazed with determination as he called to his family members. Maya understood immediately what Echo was planning. He's going to carry the interface devices himself. His armor can protect him from the energy fields. Ben grabbed his daughter's arm as she moved to follow Echo. Maya, no. This is too dangerous. Dad, I have to go with him. Echo is hurt. He needs help to reach the ships. And I'm the only one who can communicate with him clearly enough to coordinate the mission. Dr. Foster looked up from her instruments with a mixture of fear and excitement. The biotech interface devices need to be activated in a specific sequence. Maya is the only human who understands Echo's communication patterns well enough to help him time it correctly. The debate was cut short when alarms began blaring throughout the colony. The largest harvester construct had broken through the outer defenses and was approaching the main settlement. Its weapons, charged with energy that made the air itself crackle with electricity, Echo made a sound that Maya had never heard before, a battle cry that seemed to come from deep in his chest and resonate through his entire body. His family responded from positions throughout the colony, their own voices joining in a harmony that made the ground vibrate. Then they charged. Maya had seen Echo move quickly before, but she had never seen him in full combat mode. Despite his injuries, he flowed across the battlefield like liquid lightning, dodging energy blasts and covering ground with impossible speed. His family moved with him, a coordinated unit that had clearly fought together many times before. The harvester constructs turned their weapons toward the approaching deep swimmers, but the aliens' bioluminescent patterns were already working their electronic magic. Drones turned on their own masters, weapon systems malfunctioned, and coordination networks began broadcasting conflicting orders. Maya rode on Echo's back as he approached the first harvester ship, a massive vessel that had landed to deploy ground forces. The energy fields around the ship made her skin tingle and her hair stand on end. But Echo's armor absorbed most of the harmful radiation. There, Maya pointed to a section of the ship's hull where unusual geometric patterns suggested important systems. That looks like a control node. Echo approached carefully and pressed one of the biotech interface devices against the ship's metal surface. The device immediately began growing, spreading organic tendrils across the hull like ivy made of light. The ship's mechanical systems responded with confusion as alien programming began rewriting their base code. They repeated the process on 3 more ships, while the battle raged around them. Each interface device gave the deep swimmers more control over harvester systems, turning the invaders' own technology against them. The turning point came when Echo's parents successfully interfaced with the command ship's main computer. Suddenly, the entire harvester fleet began receiving new orders to cease hostilities, to withdraw from the system, to classify Haven's Edge as a protected zone. The mechanical invaders obeyed their reprogrammed commands with the same efficiency they had shown in attacking. Within an hour, the last harvester ship lifted off from Haven's Edge and disappeared into hyperspace, taking with them the threat that had terrorized the galaxy for generations. As the sun set over the battlefield, Maya sat beside Echo in the colony's medical facility, both of them exhausted but alive. Echo's injuries were healing well, and his light patterns pulsed with the warm colors that meant contentment and family love. Around them, humans and deep swimmers worked together to repair the damage from the battle. Children from both species played together in the ruins, learning each other's languages and games. Dr. Foster established a permanent research partnership with Echo's family, working to understand both human and deep swimmer technology. 3 years later, Maya stood on the observation deck of New Haven Station, the orbital facility that had replaced the surface colony as the center of human deep swimmer cooperation. She was 15 now, fluent in both bioluminescent communication and whale song languages, serving as the official translator between species. Echo stood beside her, fully grown and serving as the leader of the joint defense force that protected the outer colonies from any remaining harvester threats. His armor had healed completely, leaving only faint scars that told the story of the battle that had changed everything. New ships arriving in Sector 7, Echo communicated through patterns of light that danced across his armor. 3 human transports and a deep swimmer family pod. Maya smiled as she watched the ships dock at the station. More refugees from both species, seeking the safety and cooperation that New Haven represented. The galaxy was slowly learning that the creatures they had feared as monsters were actually allies in the fight against real threats. Sam, now 11 and fluent in deep swimmer languages, ran up to join them on the observation deck. He had his own deep swimmer companion, one of Echo's younger siblings who had bonded.